Hello, welcome to our first discussion about harmony. We're going to start by talking about building blocks within music. In other words, intervals. An interval is the distance between two notes. For example, a C way up to an E, that might be considered a large interval. A C to an A C to an E, even a C to itself. Just the distance between any two notes. And we're going to start off by talking about 4 of the smallest intervals available. Think of it this way. Why would I start with these small intervals? Well, even if you want to build a Lego castle, let's say, a big Lego castle, you still need to know how those small building blocks work. Those are essentially going to help you detail the castle as you build it. Well, in music, for us to build a song, we need to then deconstruct things down to scales, or what we might call a key center. And then even then, how do we build that? Well, we boil it down to these small intervals. So let's get discussing them. The first one is the minor second, also known as a semitone. A minor second is the distance between two notes that is smallest. There's no notes in between. So C to C sharp, or D to D sharp, F to F sharp, G to G sharp, A to A sharp. There's 5 so far: C sharp to D, D sharp to E. So any of these black to whites or whites to blacks that are right beside each other, as well as a white where there's no black in between, and the other white where there's no black in between. Now you might be thinking, but Josh, there's another white here and another white. Well, here we used B and C followed by E and F. So we don't need to do that again. This is another B and C, another E and F. So there are 12 of every interval. And we started with the minor second, or the semitone. So one more time: whites to blacks, blacks to whites, and the white semitones. That is one of 4 intervals that I want you to understand. Please feel free to practice these on the side. It doesn't have to be a lot of practice, just enough to understand that a semitone is 2 notes that are closest together with no note in between. And again, it's often called a minor second. Next up is a major second. This tends to be how in the West we start most of our scales. Think of it like do to re. So in this case, the major second, what can also be called a tone or a whole tone, would be C to D, where there's one note in between, in this case a black note, and we have a few of those types of tones. C to D, D to E, E to F doesn't count, there's no black note, so F to G, G to A, and A to B. So that's 5 white tones, or major seconds. We have a couple of black tones, again also called major seconds. We're going to be referring to them both ways probably within the course, but I'm going to try to focus on the minor second, major second end of the spectrum. So we have the black. Some of the tougher tones would be these diagonal ones that happen within this large gap here. So when they have the group of 3, group of 2, group of 3, group of 2, here we have, as I mentioned, a larger gap between the groups. So we're going to choose a diagonal tone with one note in between, and another diagonal tone. We have here, same idea, again, major second, so we end up getting all of these major seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now you know your minor seconds, semitones, and your major seconds, tones or whole tones. Those are used to create scales, but we also need to understand thirds, or what might be called skips. So there's 2 types of thirds that we'll start with. There's a minor third and a major third. And as you can probably guess, we're still slowly expanding and getting slightly bigger. So we had 0 notes in between our 2 notes to create a semitone, 1 note in between our 2 notes to create a tone. Now we're going to expand a bit further. So what happens if I have 1, 2 notes in between, and I get to this 3rd note here? So we have 2 notes in between. There's our minor third. So again, minor second, semitone, major second, tone, minor third, and then you can probably guess major third is slightly bigger. So let's go through the different minor thirds and then the major thirds, and then you'll have all those basic building blocks to refer back to as we go through this course. So, minor thirds. Whites to blacks. There's 3 of them, C to E flat, F to A flat, G to B flat. We have a couple of black, white minor thirds. We have a couple of black, black minor thirds, as well as some white, white minor thirds. You'll notice these jump around quite a bit, so I would recommend maybe starting these chromatically. So you start with C to E flat, and then you just move both of these notes up a minor second, or a semitone. So you move it up the smallest distance, there's your next minor third. Smallest distance, your next minor third. So on and so forth. You can practice them ascending, or then coming back down, descending. It almost sounds kind of cartoony. So we also have major thirds, as I mentioned, so let's get discussing those. So we have C to E in this case. So that's your classic do, re, mi, so the distance between a do and a mi. So we have 1, 2, 3 notes in between our 2 notes. Here they are, 1, 2, 3. So let's go through them chromatically again. Chromatically again just means moving by semitones. So I'm going to go up until I reach my next C to E, because remember I started on a C to an E down here, then we'll work our way back down. I'm using some very primitive fingerings just so you guys can see very clearly, but you could also try doing this on one hand and then try the other hand as well, same idea. So we covered minor seconds, also known as semitones. That's the smallest distance between 2 notes, no notes in between. A major second, also referred to quite often as a tone or a whole tone. That's where we have the distance between 2 notes with 1 note in between. Following that, we talked about the minor third. Now we're getting from what we called steps before. I don't know if I referred to these as steps, but again, seconds can also be referred to as steps. There's so many overlapping terms. I want to get some of them out of the way, but again, I'll try to stick with a few boiled down versions of these terms for this course. So seconds, minor seconds, major seconds, are referred to as steps. It's almost like the fingers are stepping along the keys, one step at a time, just taking a little walk. But what if I start to skip over notes? Well, then I'm starting to get into skips, and those are our thirds. Minor third having 2 notes in between our notes. Major third, which has 3 notes in between our notes. So we pick a note, pick another note, and there's 3 in between. That's your major third. And that's it. So the minor second, major second, steps, minor third, major third, skips. These are the building blocks for our scales and our chords that we're going to be referring to give you context so you can better understand harmony, harmonic chord progressions, and generally how all of this stuff is structured. I will see you in class number 2.